Well, all right, everyone, welcome back to Schmattz Outdoors. It's that time of year again. Season's over for me. It's a beautiful spring day out here. Can't really ask for much more. Sweatshirt's almost too much even, which is nice that it's that way. We had an easy winter here. I think the animals actually did pretty well. So the video today is going to be my yearly lessons learned video. We're going to go over some lessons that I probably didn't learn as well as I should have, because I have a fair amount of ones that kind of carry from year to year. And then we have some new lessons learned this year, some new just random thoughts on how the line went this season. So yeah, we're going to get right into it. Going to go kind of a miscellaneous category here, so just kind of some general thoughts on the season. General lessons that I may or may not have learned. I got my computer here, so I kind of, as I'm going through editing these videos for you, or even as I'm out on the line during the season, I just kind of keep a running Word document, and I just kind of put my thoughts in there as I go, and then, you know, kind of within the last few days here, I just kind of gathered them all together. Hopefully there will be some kind of continuity between how everything goes here. But so I try to keep track of things, because, you know, when I come to next season, it's very hard to remember some of the things that may have happened while I was out on the line, that type of stuff. And as I'm editing all the out on the line videos for you guys, there's a lot of things I notice while I'm editing the videos that I don't necessarily notice or pay attention to when I'm out on the line, you know, handling catches. It seems like I get in kind of a rush to get through the line, you know, hurry up, try to get more sets out, try to get home at a decent time to do skinning and everything like that. So my very first lesson learned is just time management out on the line. I think we all probably can understand that one if you're running even just a part-time line, if you're doing it after work, before work, you know, that type of stuff. Time management is critical out on the line. I'm lucky enough, I have the opportunity to run a full line. You can judge whether I'm a long liner or not, but I run around 100 miles to this year. Some years I get even up to 125 miles a day I'm running, and running 100 sets when I'm running just land line, up to, you know, 250 sets if I'm running a water line at the same time. So time management is critical, putting out sets. You know, every set takes time to check, to maintain, all that stuff. So trying to kind of balance, how many sets do I even want to get out? How many catches am I going to be making every day? Obviously, I want to be catching as much as I possibly can, but there is sort of a limit to how much time we have to maintain, run the line, get home, take care of the animals, and do it on a day-to-day basis. I trap in Minnesota here. We have essentially a 24-hour check log. You have to check them every day. I think between like 5 a.m. and 10 p.m. or something, I think is the hours of operation. So with that said, you know, I have to check every day, so I need to be able to know that I'm going to be able to get around and check every set every day. And then again, maintain the line, keep the traps working. Yeah, so time management is a big one for me. I get questions every year on why I mention the weather at the beginning of every video usually, and sometimes even at the end of the videos. Weather plays such a critical role on my line. Probably on everybody's line. Some people maybe more than others. If you're trapping a trap line up in the Yukon, let's say, weather plays a huge role in what animals do up there. If it's 50 below Fahrenheit up there, you're probably not going to be making a lot of catches. Even marten and everything else, they don't move a lot when it's 50 below out, right? Here I talk about it because I end up running such a wide range of weather throughout the month roughly that I trap. At the beginning, it can be 70 degrees, t-shirt weather, sweating, putting sets in. By the time I'm done, it could easily be 0 or below with snow and everything else. So every day I feel like makes a little bit difference. What the weather does, even overnight, I feel like plays, and especially overnight, plays a huge role in how my line does. If I'm water trapping, if it gets below freezing, that could shut my whole water line down overnight. It may work a while into the evening, but it could freeze me up overnight, as opposed to if it stays to 34, 35, there might be a little bit of ice, but most of the sets might still be working, and that's going to affect your catch rate. When it gets right towards that freezing number, water animals, in my opinion, on my line, all this stuff is kind of what I'm seeing. The movement of water animals when you get right towards that freezing mark tends to kind of slow them down, and I'll actually see a little more daytime movement from water animals. So again, that's kind of why I bring the weather up. I feel like if anything, it should give you guys a little bit of perspective of what I'm dealing with on each particular day as far as the weather is concerned. The next thing, I bring it up quite a bit because I find it very interesting. To me, it's interesting. I calling it the local Grand Slam. And I want to explain what I'm talking about because I've had a few people ask me what that is. It's nothing other than something I've made up in my head. What I have done is I've figured out every animal that's in my area here, within my trap line area, that is legal to catch. And if I catch all those animals in one season, I call that I completed my local Grand Slam. So I'm going to quickly go over the animals that I'm talking about here. We got coyote, fox, and badger, raccoons, and skunks. That's kind of the main land line, but we'll add weasels into that as well. They're a land animal as well. And then for water animals, we got muskrat, beaver, mink, and otter. Those are the typical animals in my area. I will on occasion catch a possum. It's been a couple years now since I've caught one on the line. I do catch one occasionally. They're not really supposed to be in my area here, so I don't typically include them as part of my Grand Slam. A fisher. There are some fisher in my area. Got honeybees buzzing around here. It's warm out. They're moving around, which is a good thing. The fisher, there are fisher in my area. I don't want to catch them. I can't keep them, so I need to release them when I catch them. I don't want to be doing, any harm to animals that I can't keep. And I don't want to be doing harm to any animals, honestly, but I don't want to be catching animals, having to release them, and hoping that they survive. When I catch them in the coyote sets, which is what I've done in the past, I feel like they've released pretty well. I've had a fairly easy time getting them out of my trap. So yeah, I don't include a fisher as part of the Grand Slam. It's kind of like that bonus animal. If I do happen to catch one, I kind of include it as a bonus. A couple years ago, I did complete the whole Grand Slam, caught all those species and the fisher on top of it. This past season this season that you guys just watched, I talked quite a bit about a local Grand Slam on our land here. So we own roughly 500 acres here in west central Minnesota. By we, I mean, my two uncles and my father own 3/4 and a 40 roughly. They're kind of goofy shape because the lake and everything right here. I brought it up because I've caught every species that I went over except for a muskrat now on our land here. So I'm muskrat away from the Grand Slam on our land. And that's not in a single season, obviously, but over the years now, I've caught every species except for the muskrat. So I've caught coyote, fox, and badger, some years in the same year even. Raccoons I catch off of our land every year, skunks almost every year. The muskrat I haven't got. I've caught beaver. Last year I caught beaver on, we call it our south quarter here in the ditch. I caught 2 beaver down in there. And I ended up catching an otter down in there and a mink down in there all in the same season. And then I did catch the weasel. I caught 2 weasels off of our land in the quarter down by the lake this past season. So like I said, that muskrat's the one. I've seen muskrats in the creek in our south pasture here. maybe 10 years ago they were in there. There was a single beaver moved in there and I caught the beaver. There was a muskrat down in there. I seen him swimming under the ice a couple times, but I just didn't happen. I haven't seen sign of them down in there in years, and I haven't seen one personally in years down in there. So next season, that's kind of my number one thing, is I'm going to try and catch that muskrat. There is a water hole in our pasture on this quarter, the big pasture here. I have seen them in there in the past too. There's been, like, years ago, there was a muskrat hut in there. I just think they freeze out in there every year, so I'm gonna try and drop some muskrat sets, and then our land goes right up to a lake, so I'm gonna try and put some sets down by the lake down there. I don't think there's a lot of muskrats down there because there's no bank really. It's real gradual slope out onto the farm field. A foot of water will flood 40 acres down there, right out onto our field. So a muskrat's going to be a tricky one to catch, but that's going to be kind of high on my list of animals to go after next year, is trying to focus on catching that muskrat off of our land to complete my Grand Slam off of our land here. So with that in mind, everybody's Grand Slam, if you want to call it that, should be probably different. If I lived more in northern Minnesota, I would add, a marten onto that list and a bobcat onto that list. They're on my overall bucket list of things to catch, but in my area, there isn't either one of those two animals unless there's just a random stray comes through. But yeah, so if I lived in northern Minnesota, those animals would be part of my Grand Slam. But yeah, my local Grand Slam here, it's typically more of a prairie type situation, so those are the animals I listed off are what I have to trap in my area. And I go after every animal I can. So I mean, I'm caught weasels. I try to catch all those species every year. The otter, again, is kind of that 1 in a million animal for me. I've caught 3 now in my life. So it's, out of the 12 years I've been kind of trapping hard, I've caught 3 otters over those. So yeah, it's kind of a random oddity chance that I happen to catch one, if I catch one at all. So, all right. Next thing on my thing is I kind of learned this year that I need to be, so going into the season, I have a plan that I'm going to try and, like this past season, I was hoping to hammer muskrats. There seemed to be a lot of sign around for muskrats, huts and that type of stuff. Some years there isn't hardly any huts built and I still catch a fair amount of them, but this past season, like duck season, I noticed a lot of muskrat activity, so I was really hoping to try and hammer some muskrats. The ice kind of shut that down obviously right away. We'll get into that a little more here in a bit, but so my lesson was kind of just try and be flexible with your plan. So go into the season with a plan. I actually do think that's an important thing. Kind of figure out, because I need to know before season landowners, so I got to get permission of where I can trap, that type of stuff. So I go in with a plan so I can get those permissions well before season, all that. But the lesson is to be flexible with that plan. So I kind of threw a lot of chips into a muskrat bucket this year, especially the early part of the season there. Ice shut me down, and that kind of almost threw me for a little bit of loop, because I was like, okay, I didn't put out as big of a landline as maybe I would have had I known that it was going to freeze. I would have probably tried to keep getting more and more coyote sets out that early part of the season. Yeah, so just the flexibility, just try and be flexible with your plan. If something happens, pivot, okay? Froze me up, let's hammer coyote sets in. Raccoon sets, go after weasels, try a few different things. All right, the next thing on my kind of the miscellaneous here, it was kind of a lesson I brought up last year. I didn't probably do it again as well this year as I could have. Try and take some film of non-catches stuff out on my line. I know my videos tend to be a little bit on the longer side already, so I kind of find it hard to want to have you guys sitting through that stuff or watching it, but I do feel like it is important. I see sign when I'm checking sets and stuff. I'll see footprints in the mud and different things, and I really do want to get better at showing you guys that stuff, because sometimes, it's well, you guys are watching, yeah, it looks like I'm making catches, but there are times when there are days I don't make catches. I had one skunk day this year where I didn't make a catch, but I do see sign out on the line that the animals are there. I'm just happen to not make catches in that day. But I want to get better at filming that for you guys. And I also want to get better at taking pictures out on the line. Taking pictures of catches, again, sign, things I see, stuff like that. You see some pretty cool stuff out on the line. And I like seeing it. It's fun for me. That's kind of adds to the experience of trapping out there. I'm not just out there to kill every animal that's out running across the land. Just being in the outdoors, I enjoy all of that. Like right now, there's robins chirping, there's everything else going on out here. Reminds me that spring is here, right? So that just kind of helps me kind of get into that. I like being in the outdoors. I like seeing everything out there, but I would like to get a little better at taking pictures of even non-trapping related stuff for you guys that I happen to see while I'm out on the line. Because again, I do see some pretty interesting and cool stuff that, you know, I'm guessing not a lot of people maybe actually see. So yeah, filming empty sets. I know you guys don't want to see 100 empty sets every day, but there are times, like I said, where I do feel like I notice things. When I did my the end of the line pull day, so the second one, when I actually pulled the full main line, I did show that cable sticking out that was from the first time I pulled my line. The coyote had come and dug around my stake, even though it was basically mostly covered with dirt when I pulled the trap, and I just clipped the loop on top of the cable with the cable cutter to pull my trap. The coyote had come, in the week I was gone mule deer hunting, the coyote had come and dug around it, dug a hole 6 to 8 inches deep and like roughly that big around the old bowl in there. That cable must have just kept flicking when he was digging in there, and he dug a pretty good hole. I wanted to film it when I was there the first day, and I didn't for you guys, and I finally did film it when I pulled the line there. But it's stuff like that. It's just, I have no idea. It's almost, I feel like that coyote had to have been playing with that cable or something. Otherwise, you would have thought he would have dug a little till he could figure out what it is and then left it alone. But he had dug, you know, there was 4 inches of my cable sticking out of the dirt. And like I said, I feel like because the cable's stiff, when he's digging, it must have just been like flicking back up, and I feel like he had to have been playing with it. I don't know. So again, I want to get better at filming that stuff for you guys. The next thing is I use my trapping app on my phone to mark all my coyote sets. Keeps track of the baits and lures I have at each set, the catches at each set. But for some reason on my Samsung phone, it did not work well. I can track the sets. I can't add catches this year. I couldn't add catches this year. I had a hard time editing sets. I had a hard time adding new sets in there. So that's very frustrating for me. Like I said, I really like that app. I like the ability to customize it to, in there you can add any baits and lures you're using, so you could customize all those things. And then when you go to like make a set, it just has a drop down menus for each one, and you just click what you want. I go through and I try to mark all the coyote sets that I kind of normally set out every year, and I change bait and lures every year. So I go through that app and I try to update my set to whatever my new bait and lure is, and I try to change it from year to year. So if I have Predator Bait Plus, Cabins Predator Bait Plus for a bait this year, I want to do Hiawatha Valley next year or something else. And then if I put, say, like a Bounty Hunter lure on there, I might use GH2 next year or Gusto next year or something like that. But I try to switch baits and lures on every set every year. So coyotes you're trapping in their range, they typically don't move that far. I don't want to keep putting the same set year after year with the same bait and lures. They're going to get, they can get trap wise to that, and they're going to avoid your sets and that type of stuff. And I don't want to be educating these coyotes any more than I can, so I try to change it up every year. But the My Trapping app wasn't working well this year, so I'm going to have to play with that here in the off season and see if I just need to reinstall it or what I need to do there. But I couldn't export my data from last year. It just did not work well for me this year. So either that, I'm going to have to maybe have a manual notepad. I don't want to be taking notes on a notepad while I'm out on the line. You're wet, you're dirty, you're everything else. Your notepad's going to look good the first day. You get 5 days in, that notepad's probably going to be pretty grungy and grimy riding around in the seat in my truck. I like to have the information right on my phone. I also like to have it on my phone because as I get to a set, I make a catch. It didn't let me take pictures of catches this year, so I was just using the normal phone app or camera app on your phone. But while I'm remaking the set, I look at the app and it tells me I need to have this bait, this lure there. I put the same bait and lure every time I'm doing a remake on that set. I don't want to have 50 different smells on my set. If I had Gusto and Hiawatha Valley there, I'm going to put Gusto and Hiawatha Valley back. And urine on most sets. I use a fox urine on sets. I don't use coyote urine around here. I use fox urine. But I want to know if I'm remaking a set, even though I may have just looked, sometimes I forget what it was supposed to be there. It's like, oh, was it supposed to be this or that? I can pull my phone back out of my pocket while I'm remaking the set and look, oh, that's what I need. And I don't have to go back to my truck to flip through a notepad to find what I wanted, what I had there. If I have to go to a notepad next year, I do. I'm hoping I can figure out that app, but that was very frustrating for me on the line this year. Just kind of a random thing here, and it's kind of been the case for maybe the last 3 or 4 years. If my father rides around on me, he doesn't really want to be filmed. I catch him on there once in a while, and I leave it in there for you guys. Little blip for me more than anything in there. But when Dad rides along, for some reason, I tend to make catches. I don't know if he's just very crafty about what days he decides to ride around with me, but there'll be times I'll have a couple real slow days, and then for random chance, he'll get up early in the morning and be like, yeah, I'm going to ride around with you today. I tend to do well on those days. Not complaining. If that's the case, I need to get him to ride with me every day, but I don't think he really would want to do that. So yeah, he rode around with me on the day, just I mentioned, or I noted too here, on the day I caught my first raccoon. I had that great big boar raccoon caught kind of in the little grove of trees in a corner of a wildlife. And he rode around with me the first pull day when I pulled the line the first time before I went mule deer hunting. And I made catches on both of those days. Next thing, we're kind of getting close to through the miscellaneous. The animals, specific animal stuff, I don't have a lot this year. But next thing I want to note is it was a tough season on the line. You guys probably could tell from my barn picture, I had maybe half as much on the barn as a normal year. I caught half as many raccoons, half as many skunks, roughly half as many coyotes. I think animal numbers in general in my area were down, other than muskrats. Water animals, it seems like they were doing okay, but the land animals were down. I don't know if it had to do with it was kind of a drought season this last year around here. All last summer it was really dry for a long period of time, from probably middle of May until middle of August. We had like less than an inch of rain in my area here, right? So it surprised me the muskrats did as well as they did, but the sloughs were really high from the winter before. But yeah, it was a tough season on the line. Sign of animals seemed to be probably half maybe of what it would be in a normal year when I'm putting out the line. I put my sets in the same spots year after year most of the time because I have history with those sets, but I also have kind of pinpointed or narrowed down the spot on the spot, if that makes sense. And when you find sign of coyote tracks or something like that, in places they'll almost have like a beat down trail along the edge of some of these fields. That's where I'm putting my set every year. The coyotes are telling me, or the animals are telling me where to put sets. But again, with that said, instead of a packed down trail like they would normally have, there was maybe only 1 or 2 sets of tracks this year there. So animal sign was down. It just was a tough season. The weather and everything didn't help me out at all this season. Things freezing up, everything like that. It just made for a tough season overall. A few people have asked me why I pulled the whole line, come back and reset the whole line up. I put my mule deer hunting trip above trapping this year. It was my first time actually with a mule deer tag. I had a mule deer rifle tag. Yeah, I'm going to do that every season. If I draw a mule deer tag this year, I'm going to go hunt mule deer instead of trapping. I'll do what I can trapping either before or after the mule deer trips if that's possible, but I'm kind of a hunter at heart. I trap because I enjoy trapping as well. Don't get me wrong, my channel is strictly trapping stuff, or almost all trapping stuff. But yeah, there's a few people ask me why I put going mule deer hunting over trapping. I can trap, you know, every season typically. I have, you know, vacation time to do it. I have hundreds of miles of land, or, you know, hundreds of miles I could drive around and get land permission to trap on. But I only, like, it took me 7 years to draw that mule deer tag. You know, I'm 38 right now. If I only draw a tag every 7 years, I may only get 3 or 4 more opportunities in my life to go mule deer hunting. So yeah, I put it first. I don't regret it one bit. There's things that happened on that trip I regret, but going hunting, I do not regret that. This season, because of the mule deer hunting trip, I actually wasn't even sure I was going to be able to trap at all, even before before I went hunting, or obviously if I was going to get a deer early enough to come back and reset the lineup. Typically going into the trapping season, I kind of have a few videos I want to make for you guys, you know, how I set beaver traps or different things. This year I didn't really have a very good list, so I didn't film a lot of like extra how-to type videos on the line. So we're going to be probably scrambling a little bit over the summer here to try and get some, I have some ideas of some videos I want to make for you guys, but yeah, I didn't have a very good plan going into the season, so I really didn't film much of that type of stuff for you guys. So like I said, I'm going to have to try to be a little better next season, because there are things I want to show you guys that it's very hard to do while I'm setting in my yard here. I may try to do some how-to type videos like setting beaver traps. I may actually go and just set my beaver traps on this, you know, find a good spot so I can film and show you guys how I do it, and then just pull my gear right out of there because we're out of season, obviously. Well, right now the beaver season's still going on, but you get my idea. In the middle of the summer, I might be able to film some like how I make set type videos and just pull my set as soon as I'm done videoing for you guys, so I'm not illegal setting it there. I've had a few people ask me the next thing here. I've had a few people ask me over the years why I don't keep putting out sets, like coyote sets in particular, but I talk about it in my video. If I have under a week of running my line, I mentally have a very tough time putting out those sets. There's a lot that goes into that. Usually I'm getting towards the end of the season. Obviously I'm down to a week or less left of my season. It's very tough for me mentally to convince myself to go through the time and effort to actually go find new spots and get coyote sets put in, or raccoon sets, and sometimes water sets too. If I'm down to maybe 1 or 2 more days before I feel like I'm going to get iced in, it's very hard for me to put those sets there with the idea that in 2 days I might not make a catch. So all that time and effort, it could be wasted because I might not make a catch there. It's more mental for me than it is anything that, you know, but there is also a cost to that as well. The extra distance I'm traveling to check those sets. Bait and lure is not cheap. I try to be a little more on the generous side probably when I'm making sets, coyote sets in particular, with baits and lures. I want to make sure there's enough there to get the animal curious enough to come over there to check it out so I could catch him. You could put a little pea-sized piece of lure there. If the animal comes by the first night, he might smell it and come over and investigate. I want to put enough there that it's going to hopefully smell for a week, week and a half, without me having to come and redo anything to that set. You know, re-lure, rebait, all that stuff. I don't want to be doing that stuff any more than I have to, so I try to put a little more there the first time. I try to avoid my sets as much as possible. I don't want to add human scent there. So when I'm there, I want to make it so it's going to be working for as long as possible without me having to touch it or maintain it or do anything to it. Deer will set your traps off, obviously stuff like that. I maintain those. If I notice a trap is set off, I will reset it that day. years ago, I wasn't maybe as good as that. I would see a trap set off and be like, oh, I'll drive out there tomorrow and reset it. Tomorrow comes around, it's like, I don't know if I want to drive out there today. I've turned that around. If a trap is set off, it is not doing me any good, I reset it that day. No questions asked. Even if I got to walk across a half-mile of muddy field to do it, I'm going to walk out there and reset that set. If I went through all the effort to put the set there, I want it working as long as possible. The reason why I don't, like, especially like coyote traps, they kind of, in my mind, I make first night catches as well, but in my mind, they almost have to settle in a little bit in order for them to really become productive. And in my area, it seems like that's, you know, in that 3 to 4 days before they really start settling in. And then I've noticed over the years, I have no like analytical data I can show you other than just my observations, but I've noticed my catch rate. I'll catch, you know, some on the first night the sets are there, you know, then usually maybe the second, third night it'd be nothing. And then once they hit to about 4 days, I've kind of noticed my catch rate will pick up after the 4th day until you get again to maybe that week and a half. And then I kind of feel like, you know, your smells kind of dilute enough that maybe they aren't interested, or you've caught, you know, the animals that were there and they don't want to come and mess with it. And that goes for a remake as well. So if I remake the set, it's almost like it restarts the clock. So again, when I get down to 1 or 2 days left of the season, I have a very hard time remaking a set. Even though it's there, all I have to do is remake it. I'm still adding bait and lure to it. And again, I try to kind of weigh what's my chances of actually making a catch to the time, money, and effort I'm putting in to actually put the set there. Beginning of the season, I try to hammer out as many sets as I can because they're going to be sitting there for a month, hopefully. You know, I can trap for roughly a month every year. So hopefully they're going to be sitting there for that entire time, and that means that I have a high probability of making catches. It's worth the effort to put it there. If it's not worth the effort, you're not in a good spot. You need to find a better spot to put your traps. General thought, I need to build a more robust icebreaker for busting the ice around my muskrat sets, beaver sets, that type of stuff. The one I had, it had worked very well for me, but typically I only get, if I get ice overnight, usually I'll get like a 1/4 inch of ice, and it was robust enough. You just kind of push on the ice and it'll kind of crack an area around you. It wasn't made for busting 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch in ice like it put on that first night I was water trapping this year. So yeah, I have some ideas in mind of kind of what I'm going to do there, make it a little more robust. I still want it light. I like it being wood because it floats. So yeah, I have some ideas there on how I'm going to kind of redo my icebreaker, try and beef it up just a little bit so it'll work a little better. One thing that I want to point out is trying to film remakes for you guys. I filmed a remake on a badger set for you this year. I think I may have filmed one more that I had a fox caught in. It's on my mind that I want to try and show you what those remakes look like when I'm done. Because showing you the set with the animal in there is fun. I enjoy doing that. I enjoy showing that to you guys. But my channel, I'm trying to gear it a little more to be educational for you guys. So even with this video, I'm hoping you guys can learn from my mistakes and take some of what I'm telling you and be like, oh, I need to be thinking about those things on my line. But the remakes, I want to be showing you, I want to try to do a better job of showing you guys remakes at my sets so you kind of know what they look like after the fact. With the remakes, I've had a lot of questions and I see a lot of people asking everybody about this. Do you do remakes? Yes, 100%. I will remake the set as long as the set is in working condition. If the animal didn't chew my cable, you know, my cable stake, they didn't partially pull my cable stake, something like that, then I'll pull it and move over a little bit and make a new set. But yeah, I catch probably well over half of the animals I catch in remakes. So 100% that it's, obviously it was in a good spot to make a catch the first time. There's a good chance there's going to be more animals coming by. There's a lot of scent that an animal leaves at a set when you have them caught there. One thing that I've been doing better at is adding new sets when I start making catches. You know, if I make like say 2 coyote catches in the same trap, I'll move over 10 feet, put another clean set there. But I'm 100% remaking that set every time. again, unless something happens and I can't do it. Kind of a little chuckle for me. Need to do a little more maintenance on my truck apparently ahead of time. I had some brake pad issues where it literally peeled the brake pad off on one side, and then the actual metal plate that your pad is on actually kind of fell out and was jammed in there. So it was like making a very ugly noise when I was driving. So yeah, just kind of a general thing. We all probably could do a little more maintenance on our vehicles before we start the season, you know, or do a good once over. I do make sure I change my oil before I start my trapping season, because I put on 3,000 to 4,000 miles a year every year when I'm trapping. So I try to make sure I change my oil at the beginning of the season, and I actually, now that it's spring, I actually need to go through and I'll change the oil in that truck again, because again, I put 3,000 plus miles on it last fall. Kind of the last kind of overall observation I made on my line this year, and I've noticed this other years and I've been trying to keep track of it better. For some reason, I feel like animal numbers were down, especially females. So I actually caught this year, and the two that I paid the most attention to were raccoons and coyotes. I ended up catching 2 badgers this year. I had 1 female, 1 male. I caught 2 fox this year, 1 female, 1 male. Typically those animals, I don't catch enough of them. I don't have a big enough sample size to really notice whether I'm catching a lot of males or a lot of females. This year I only caught 9 raccoons, which is not good. I'm not happy about that number. I'm going to get into a few things that happened and some thoughts on that in a bit here. But out of the 9 raccoons I caught, 8 of the 9 were males. I caught 1 female, and the female is the one you guys may remember had kind of a rub spot in the middle of her back. That happened to be a female. That was the only female I caught all season in the raccoons. Last year I ended up, I think, in the mid-20s for raccoons, and I was at like 20 males to like 7 or 8 females last year. So I mean almost 2 to 1, if not a little higher than that, male raccoons to females. Part of that is where I'm putting sets. I have a lot of sloughs around my area, obviously. I do not like putting raccoon sets on the edges of sloughs. Seems like I catch a lot of kits and I catch a lot of females when I'm trapping like that. I don't mind catching them. They're just not worth a whole lot most of the time. A lot of the females tend to still be very sucked out, you know, even when trapping season. So they're definitely not prime while I'm trapping. And the kits don't typically prime up all that well. They're small. I mean, a kit around here, put up kit, I might get $3 for them. If I wait another year, that coyote or that raccoon could be $20+, right? So again, where I'm catching them more overland raccoons. You know, I'm catching them in coyote sets a lot of times. I do catch plenty in dog proofs, but again, they're typically not set around edges of sloughs and where you might pick up more females and kits. Coyotes. I actually had caught 11 male coyotes to 2 female coyotes to start my season off this year. 11 to 2. So that's what, 80-ish% were males to start off my season. And then the last 3 that I caught happened to be females. So I ended up with 11 males and 5 females this year for the 16 coyotes I caught. So over 2 to 1 males to females. And that typically happens every year. I noticed it like 5 years ago happening, that I was catching a lot of males to start the season. And then the last few years, I've been keeping track. Every coyote I catch, I kind of added to a tally kind of to male or female. And the last 3 years, that same kind of average is held true. And I will start off the season catching 5 to 1 males to females, which is kind of what I had this year again, you know, but I end up, typically I'll catch in the mid-20s or more coyotes. So, but as I get towards the end of the season, then all of a sudden it will switch and I start catching almost like 2 to 1 females to males. And a lot of years I end up a little closer to 50-50 at the end of the season. But again, I catch a ton of males first, and then the males just slowly taper off, and then I start catching females. I don't know. If you guys have ideas why that is happening, I'd be very interested to hear. what your guys' thoughts are on that. I don't know if the males are traveling more to begin with and the females are more denned up, even though I don't think they're really denned anymore by the time trapping season starts around here. I don't know what's causing that, but I've noticed it. It's very interesting to me. I'm going to keep trying to keep track of it. Again, I just don't know if the males are traveling more than females, if there is more males than females around. And so that would, the population dynamics would tell me that if there's more males than females around, I'm going to catch more males than females. But yeah, it's just something I noticed out on the line, and I find it very interesting. All right, guys, and the last thing I really had on kind of the general miscellaneous lessons learned for this year is I feel like, let's see, I don't know how to explain this. So I just want you guys to be aware that for everybody filming all of this stuff for YouTube, right, and all the videos that I put out for you guys, kind of goes back to time management while I'm out on the line. There are people, I've had people tell me that, hey, I could easily be putting out more sets. It's not dark when I get home, all that stuff. But I want people to keep in mind one thing, and then this will be the end of this video. It takes a lot of time to film for you guys. So just general keep in mind, I'm not going to preach to you, I'm hoping not to here. The last thing is, so if I'm putting out a 30-minute video for you guys, I probably have 45 minutes to maybe even closer to an hour of filming, and I try to trim it down to be that, because I don't want an hour-long video every time. There are some videos that get that long. So 30-minute video, I might have 45 minutes worth of video that I'm trimming down to a 30-minute video for you guys. I'd like you guys to keep in mind, not that you need to, I'd like you to keep in mind that is 45 minutes a day I am spending filming while on my line, that I'm actually most of the time not remaking a set. I'm not doing anything like that. I am literally filming just to show you guys the catches, the area I'm in, everything like that. So I'm spending 45 minutes a day just doing that I'm not adding more sets. I'm not remaking that set, taking the animal out of there, getting it reset, moving on. I'm spending that extra time to try and show you guys this stuff. I feel like that gets taken advantage a little bit sometimes. I don't really have any particular comment in particular I'm thinking about, but it just keep in mind what you said. So there is a cost to me filming for you guys, and it might be that I'm not getting out 2 or 3 extra coyote sets that day or something like that. So just kind of the last thing to keep in mind. I feel like it should be self-explanatory, but I don't think a lot of people probably really think or realize that part of it. So I could see that this video got quite long, so we're actually going to make this a 2-part lessons learned again. I was hoping not to do that, but I feel like a lot of information in this video, and I'm going to go, the part 2 of this is going to be species specific, so I'm going to go through muskrat, mink, coyote, all those. I have a few things for each one, some animals more than others. Some animals are nothing really for a lesson learned this year. But part 2 of this is going to be that lessons learned. That's going to be more of the species specific things that I've learned this year. Again, I appreciate you guys riding around with me this year. I enjoy filming for you guys. I don't want to say that I don't. I really do enjoy it. I enjoy actually editing the videos because I get to kind of relive everything that's going on. But yeah, it does take time. It takes time to film. It takes time to edit. So maybe keep that in mind when you're commenting things on videos. Not necessarily on my channel. I don't get too many negative or any negative comments really. But I see plenty on other channels that you need to remember, those guys that are people are taking time out where they could be doing anything else. They could be fishing, they could be hunting, they could be doing anything. But instead they're trying to make content for you to enjoy. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, yeah. I will see you guys on part 2 of this video. It'll be the next video coming out here. Otherwise, thanks for riding around with me again this year.